Hey everybody, welcome to another. Jeez, I'm just gonna. You know what? I'm just gonna be me. Okay. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Nightmare Road. I, of course, am one of your hosts, Decon the Dirty Dream, the man of the hour, the man with the power, the man that's way too sweet to be sour, Decon the Dirty Dream. That's right, Daddy. And I am over here with my co-host, the one, the only, the master of the darkness,
No,
the master of all things scary, player. Here we have Laura Splasher.
sounded like you said splash.
I know. I don't know. I kind of lost. I kind of lost control.
Sorry.
You know how it is.
I know.
You know how it is in the wrestling business, or as we call it, the biz.
Yeah. Of course.
Well, so today's episode is brought. That sounds like when you have those news reporters and they don't know they're on camera and just talking shit and then they have to turn it back on, so they're like, nah, pues Javier es un pendejo y también me pela la verga. Oh, estamos en vivo. Ahora empezamos y el clima está, just,
yeah, it's like did it the other time, the ISO pale.
Yeah, I was like ISO pale, and just like you're on. There's an accident on I-15.
Stupid.
So anyway, what the hell was I saying? Okay, so today's episode is brought to you by Loot by Lottie. So if you guys want to start your own witch, have you seen like any type of chaotic witchy stuff going on around your home?
No.
Okay. Nothing witchy? No, okay, moving on. So, for all your witch needs, head on over to Loot by Lottie and get yourself a box. Type in the promo code NIGHTMARE and get 15% off any purchases above $30. Don't be a cheapskate. Get the nice $40 box. I don't know. You might even include my beard hair. You never know. Also by Groceries and Ghost by Shaun Burris, the ghost man himself. Many people out there say there's somewhere out there's a man that's chasing the paranormal, and boy is he sexy. But they're right. That is Shaun Burris.
Oh,
the epitome of sexiness. He's out there, so check him out at Shadow Nation Podcast and his website shadownationpodcast.com. Also brought to you by Paranormal Unveiled, Nate, Static Voices, and with his brand new book, Downloading the Paranormal Erotica. Mm-hmm. So you guys can go ahead and check out that link in the description. Pretty soon, I will be doing the narrating for that book. No? All right. No. Also, let's give a couple shout-outs. Should we give some shout-outs?
Yeah, do it.
All right. Dreamscape Chronicles out there. So check them out on YouTube, Spotify, other places where you can find podcasts. So check them out. And also by Render the Darkness. Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. I had another thing in my head, but so Render the Darkness on YouTube and on TikTok. So check them out. Like and subscribe. Do all that fun, nasty stuff. So that's it. That's it. So today's episode, what do we got going? I forgot. Oh, wrestling.
Oh! I thought you meant you forgot something else. So I was waiting. Oh, okay.
No, yes. I forgot.
Grizzly Smith.
Grizzly Smith.
Yeah. Gross. I hate talking about this, but it's so disgusting that like you have to, because like it's so bad.
It's because people. It's because people don't know. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like they can go. Like if you ask any old person that watched like wrestling in the 70s and 80s, it's like, hey, remember Grizzly Smith? And they're not in the loop, and they're like, Grizzly Smith. Oh, he was such a big guy and such a good guy. Always had those kids around him because he cared about the youth. He cared about preserving the innocence of children, unlike nowadays when wrestlers wouldn't even let a kid sit on his lap, And
It's so gross.
it's
I
fucking
hate it
weird.
so much.
An honorable mention. I'm gonna do an honorable. We just.
Yeah, go ahead.
An honorable mention. Just because. Just
You want to do it now?
okay. I'll do it now. Should I do it now?
Yeah. Go.
Jerry the King of Tennessee. Here we have, Jerry the King Lawler, who was like a guy who did commentary. He retired. He got the Hall of Fame. Baseball teams adored him. WWE loved him. He was such a lovable pervert, like in their, because he was, whenever they had the divas come through, he's like, puppies. I would have rubbed my face on those puppies. And then it was fun. Like, no one cared. Everybody's like, oh, he's so, likable. Girls like divas, were like all over him, even though he was like a guy. He married a girl that he was like 40 something years older than. Well, he was
Gross.
yeah. And it was because of who he was. He was Jerry. And to be honest with you, I watched some of his old wrestling. It was so shitty. Like, I don't get it. I don't get like why the big hype. His moves were shitty. He was out of shape. He was. Now I feel bad because I almost made a comparison, but after I said all those bad things, now I can't. You know what I was gonna say?
What?
I was gonna say that when he has his beard, just the beard without the mustache, he reminds me of a fresh face, like a young Shaun Burris.
Oh my god! You just compared Shaun a friendly pervert.
Yeah, to a friendly pervert. But anyway, listen to those early episodes of the Ghostman and Demon Hunter show. You'll see what I'm talking about. So anyway, so you had Jerry the King, right? And everybody, loved him. He was so revered. Wrestlers don't have like a bad thing to say about him. Well, some of them do. Like there's people out there that said, I brought my girlfriend around him and he pinched her ass. And he thought it was funny. And he says, I thought about like saying something to him, but it's like, well, I am talking to the king. So it was kind of like, just one of those things. And then it's people either forget or they ignored the fact that he sodomized an underage girl that was 13 years old. He even made the paper, so it's so crazy. They ended up
but like way before like a lot of the things that he did.
Yeah.
And, like, nobody cared or
no. So he was already the king of the South, right? He was already Jerry the King. He had his promotion. He had his stupid gimmick. And he was famous enough that people flocked to him. He really became famous when he had a feud with Andy Kaufman, the comedian, and Andy Kaufman, check out, he had a great bit where he impersonates Elvis. So anyway, Jerry the King, he got his fame, he was well known, and then he used this fame to like get all these groupies. Like there was even stories where girls would line up just to give him some certain favors, because he's Jerry the King. What's he famous for? I don't know. I really don't get it. Like he was a shitty wrestler. He didn't have that many moves. People talk shit on certain wrestlers that only have 5 moves. He had like 3.
There's just some people that get famous that really just don't deserve it.
Yeah. So anyway,
one a couple months ago.
So yeah, jeez. So we have this guy, right? He used his fame and he was inappropriate with a couple of girls. One of them, he was went to actual court for it, and it was for the sodomy of a 13-year-old girl. And then they settled out of court. There was like, whatever, like get that, and then probably got like free tickets to wrestling or some shit. So what year was this? Was this
I
like
hope they took so much money from him.
yeah?
What
So
year
and
was it?
this was like 80s, right? Mid 80s.
5 or something like that.
Yeah, it was around that time, around the time
Mhm.
that Grizzly Smith was roaming around. So,
Mhm.
all right, so let's begin with Grizzly Smith. Grizzly Smith was a famous wrestler. You know, he was 6'9". How tall was he? So in wrestling, they exaggerate a lot of heights. So he could have been 6'7", but they build him as 6'9". In some territories, he was 7'1". I think 6'9" is more
He was,
accurate.
yeah, he was around 6'8", 6'9", and like over 350 pounds.
Yeah, he was a big motherfucker. Do you have a picture of
Mhm.
him?
I do.
Pull it up. Beat it. That guy does have like the head of a cow.
He does.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Very
So
large.
he's a big dude. Not very like probably because he's so tall that he
Hmm.
looks like physical. But if you look at his definition, like he's more like stomach heavy than he is like muscular.
Hmm.
You know,
Look
but
how
there he is.
big he is.
Yeah, that's a big dude. That's
It's
him
huge.
next. Yeah, it's a pretty big guy.
Hmm.
So anyway, so this guy is father to a couple of wrestlers, but
Hmm.
the most famous one, Jake the Snake Roberts.
Yep.
And everybody was singing his praises. Everybody, and the first person to ever talk about his inappropriate with children was actually Jake the Snake. And when he said it, so many people were kind of like, "Shut the fuck up," like you don't say that,
Hmm.
And he didn't give a shit. Like
No.
he was venting. He was really hurt by it. Really saddened by what was said. And he even had a daughter and another son and family members that knew about that kind of stuff, but never spoke about it. And I just wonder why they kept it such a secret.
I don't know. He said that like early in his wrestling that other wrestlers would tell him about it, and he's like, and I didn't want to believe it. Like nobody wants to hear that about their own dad, and like that he was kind of just like, even though he knew it was true, pretty much.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
he was saying no about, I guess, like outside of home, things that were happening not at his house.
yeah. So I think that's probably one of the. Well, maybe I just answered my own question there. I wonder if that's one of the reasons why the other kids didn't say that because, do you want people to look at you and be like, "Damn, your dad's a rapist"?
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's why they kept it quiet.
Well, the sister, she said, for her, it started really young.
Yeah.
And she said that she's like, like, that something is off, but the only way, I guess, to like stop this from happening to you is to destroy the person that is doing it to you. And she's like, but in this case, like, it's your dad and you don't want
Yeah.
to see your dad destroyed. So it's hard to kind of like talk about it like that. But she was really, really young when it happened. So I mean, I kind of can't really, blame her for not saying anything. She said it started like when she was 6 or 7.
Yeah, and then that's what's sick. So a lot of people are talking about Grizzly, and anybody that watches a Jake the Snake promo, he had these very deep, methodical ways of talking, during the promo, and he would like go like really dark into his promos, and he would use psychology. Like he was known as a person like. So there was a great promo that I remember, even talked about on the Joe Rogan show. That he said that he had the cameras rolling and he would go, and then they're like, "What are you doing?" He says, "Just keep the camera going. So try again." And he was like, and then finally he goes, "Go ahead and lie to the little boy that I'm not in your head. You just had him try to fix the TV when there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah, tell him that Jake is not in your head and he is not in your home. By the way, tell your wife I said hello." And that was the end of the promo.
So creepy.
And then the camera guy looked at him and he's like, "You're a sick fuck." And he said that's all I said. They used to call him One Take Jake. So he would just say the darkest shit. So he says, "When you go to bed tonight, just think about me Just think about me in your head all night, destroying your favorite wrestler, your hero, and you know that he's mine. And if he's mine, I'm in your head. So that means that you're also mine. Yeah, that was the end of the pro. And then he just like said the darkest shit. So he talked about he was able to pull these promos just out of the darkness that was going on in his life and in his head through his memories, right?
Mhm.
So people are saying like, damn, he was a psychologist when it came to fucking with people that way.
Yeah.
So people are saying like, damn, like he was so good. So they were talking about like, where did he get this darkness from? And he's like, well, Grizzly Smith. Grizzly Smith was also, he was good at psychological warfare, only he didn't use it in his promos. In his promos, he was more of a wild man, like, I'm gonna beat your ass. And then he used that psychology at home. So
Yeah.
he used it on his kids. His daughter was talking. There's a great what is it called? Behind the Titantron or Dark Side of the Ring? Behind the Titantron, what it was called before it was Dark Side of the Ring. So anyway, so in Dark Side of the Ring, one of his daughters just talks about, and his kids just talk about like what a monster he was. But there was interviews that came after Jake, because Jake basically is the one that like opened this box, right? And now it was okay for everybody to talk about, even though a lot of people didn't want to. His daughter said that he would completely ignore her. He wouldn't talk to her for days, wouldn't talk to her for weeks, until like the only time he would get attention is when he would like, Daddy loves you. Dad, just come sit on my lap. And he would do horrible things to her. She said the only time he showed her any affection was when he would abuse her. And then she got the understanding that that's what love was. The only way for her to actually get attention from her dad and affection was when this kind of stuff was happening. So it was almost like a trade-off. Like, yeah, this is horrible and this is happening, but I get my father's affection in exchange. And he did that, like on purpose. He used this with grown women, and he started using it on his kids.
He started doing that to her after he got a divorce from their mom.
Yeah.
So like when they were like not living together, when he was either living alone or with someone, with that other lady, that's when this whole thing started.
Yeah, and it was so gross because he had so at some point he saved up his money and he ended up buying time on a promotion. So then he became the booker, he had control. So he started having other wrestlers drive him around. And they thought it was like the weirdest thing because they always heard like weird whispers, and it's like, damn, like there's Grizzly Smith like surrounded by kids and he's picking out kids from a crowd. And they noticed that he only picked the girls, like you and you, come over here. And then he would talk and he would sit them on his lap and then he would just like talk to them. And people started thinking that was really weird. So then when he had wrestlers like chauffeur him around, they said that parents would be standing like outside. He's like, turn right here, and then this is the address. And then the guy's like, this place? And he goes, yeah, what are we doing here? He says, no, just wait, just wait. So then he would wait and he's like, no, honk the horn, and he would honk the horn. And then parents would come out with a 11, 12-year-old girl. And then he would sit in the back seat with her. And the guy was like, all right, what the hell? And then he would just drive him around. He said he didn't do anything inappropriate in front of them that he could see. So he was like, maybe this is a daughter of his that he, maybe this is a niece, maybe this is something, and have him just drive him around. And he's like, yeah, just drop us off here. And then they would drop them both off. And then, just wait here for 30 minutes. And then he'd get back in the car and just drop the girl back off home.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't think it was that. He thought that something was off, but he thought that maybe maybe it's just me. He was like, maybe it's just me. I mean, the parents did come out. Like, it's probably his niece, Yeah. Maybe he took her in here, to blah, blah, whatever. So that was the reputation that he had, that he would have little girls in different states that he would just hang out with. Some people were like, damn, he has a lot of kids. And people are like, is this a side family? Like, is that what's going on? Like, is this a...
And somebody said, I don't know if it was, I need to look it up. I think it was, what's his name? Dutch Mantel?
Dutch Mantel.
I think he's the one that said that he had a lot of connections in like every city that they would go to. Like he knew the police.
Yep, he knew
like, the cops. He knew like a bunch of people. He was like friendly with everyone. And so I think that's why a lot of the time he was able to get away with it, or thought that he could just, do whatever he wanted, was because he knew police everywhere.
Yeah, Jim Cornette had a story about how the first time he worked with Grizzly, and this is another guy that to me, I used to like him, and then I realized that if you had like different like political views of him, he would just call you a piece of shit and write you off, like he did with the guy that plays Kane, Glenn Jacobs. So he was a great worker. He was da da da. He was always polite. He was always kind. He was always on time. He was always. But then I find out that he's a right wing fucking lunatic. Fuck that guy. He's a piece of shit. And that's how he was. So what really did it for me was the fact that he knew about Grizzly Smith, and he's like, well, this is the guy that, butters your bread and that and all this kind of stuff. And then he was like, but no one knew about it. Everybody knew about it. So
No, that's a lie.
But he was talking about how, like, he said a famous line. He said, that'll be the equivalent of you saying that, how come the people that work with Jeffrey Dahmer were okay with him? Well, they didn't know he was fucking eating people, when he was working at the candy factory. That's actually not true. And then he basically contradicted himself, because he said, I would see Grizzly with a couple of young girls and I would make jokes like, oh, there he goes. Maybe he's going to read them Bible verses. And I'm like, you just said that you didn't know. And then you're making sarcastic comments. So anyway, so he talked about his connections. And he said that one time, this fan basically punched him in the face. So then he said that he took his tennis racket that he always carried because that was his gimmick. His gimmick was he had a tennis racket, Jim Cornette, and he said he smacked this guy in the face with the tennis racket. And so then that happened, right? So he says, I thought I was out of the woods. So then Grizzly Smith was like, you got to turn yourself in. You got to get ahead of this. When you go to the next town, turn yourself in. So he was like, all right, I thought I got. He's like, no, it's better if you just turn yourself in. So he did. They go to the next town. He turns himself in. He's in jail, he says, for 45 minutes. Then Grizzly Smith is shaking hands with the cops, and they let him, well, you're free to go.
Dutch Mantel said the same thing, that when he got in trouble somewhere, that the one that went to go pick him up was Grizzly Smith.
Was Grizzly Smith. And then he was signing autographs for the cops. He was like shaking their hands, and he's like, well, you're done. And he's like, what? He says, that's it. So he also would go to territory. He said somebody threatened to beat Jim Cornette's ass. So he said he was sitting in the crowd, and then Grizzly Smith just sat beside him, and just like put his hand on his shoulder, and then all these like wrestlers started sitting beside him, and he was kind of like, like, all right, and I felt safe. No one fucked with me. No one did anything because basically he was under Grizzly Smith's protection. So that's like the kind of power that he had. So
also gigantic.
He was also gigantic.
Yeah.
Another one. It's just like the whole kept secrets that really bother me. Jim Ross was a beloved, commentator. He has his own business. He has Grilling with JR. He's got his own barbecue sauce, which is actually pretty damn good. But yeah, he has his own barbecue sauce. He has his own spicy ketchup. I
love spicy ketchup.
So he has like his own spicy ketchup. But then after I heard this, I'm like, I'm never buying another bottle again. The fact that
pickle ketchup. Sorry, I haven't been able to find it anymore, and I'm really sad about it.
No, I think he has some. Like, if you go on the Grilling JR, like the website, I think you can find all his stuff. Anyway, so yeah, we're making a commercial for free.
Yeah.
Send me a bottle of ketchup, you piece of shit. So,
no joke.
So JR, okay, so in the Dark Side of the Ring, that was his season. He was in that season because he had connections. We're gonna do all the stories of everybody you had a connection with and a personal relationship with. So he's like, fine. If you watch all those episodes, he's in all of them except for one, and that's the Grizzly Smith one. Mm-hmm. And Jim Cornette even said that. He goes, he had a fucking relationship with him personal. He worked this territory. He was his booker. He was his whatever. He was always hanging out with them. He says, how come he wasn't on there? And he's like, I just found that to be strange. He had all these stories and he wasn't on because he didn't want to talk. He didn't want to say anything. And then when Jake the Snake went further out than he was like going on Joe Rogan, he was going on these things, just telling these fucking horrible stories. He's the one that really broke it open that Grizzly Smith's, that his wife was only 13 years old.
Jake the Snake's mom.
So do you want to tell that story?
Sure. So when he was born, he said that he was born when she was 13. So So most likely
Because
when
she
it
was 12.
happened, she was 12. So basically, he was dating her mom, right?
Yeah.
And all that I've read and heard is it just says like she passed out. I don't know if it was alcohol, if it was something else.
I think it was pills and alcohol.
Okay, so she passed out. He left the bedroom, went into the 12-year-old's bedroom, forced himself, and she got pregnant. And then Jake came, and they ended up getting married, this little girl and him. He was about 24, 25, I think, and she was 12.
She was 12 years old.
And then they ended up going and having 2 more kids, and he divorced her by 17.
Yeah, so
5 years, 3 kids, and then he divorced her.
Yeah, and he was a minor. So the stories are, and again, this is so fucking dark. You had wrestlers like Jerry the King laugh about things like that, and he goes, "Well, she aged out."
It's so bad.
It's fucking gross. I mean, and a lot of wrestlers like, "Well, she got too old."
To joke about it, like to know about it,
and then
well, okay.
and then to not say anything. It's fucking gross. So when he got a little bit older, this is a story that I heard from a couple of wrestlers. And there's a wrestler out there called Sting. Like, he used to wear like really badass makeup. He looked like the Crow,
Yeah.
WCW. Anyways, so Sting they told him, they're like, hey, watch out for watch your kids, or watch some kids around Grizzly Smith. And he goes, why? He's like, oh, he kind of likes kids. And he says, and they're like, oh, okay, whatever, all right, very funny, and they're like, no, seriously, you watch him around kids because and it's like, is this true? And they're like, yeah. So then he says that he's like, I try to ignore him, and he says they were on the bus, and then they stopped by somewhere, and then they see him start talking to some young girls, and he was like, you want to come to the back of the bus with your Uncle Grizzly, so he said he walked right up to him and knocked him out, just hit him, head bounced off the concrete. So
how tall was he? Because that man was
Sting, he was probably like maybe 6'1", 6'2".
Oh, okay.
So yeah, he knocks this dude out, and after that, Grizzly started going like in his own transportation, and he was surrounded by a couple wrestlers that the rumor was that they were doing the same thing. They didn't want to mention who it was. Shit, maybe Jerry the King was on there. But they didn't mention names, but they said that he had these guys for protection because now he's afraid, like, fuck, now people, I guess, know. So he had his own, like, pedal bus, basically. He had the pedal bus with, like, the pedal driver. And he would never miss the tour. Like, he was always on tour, except for if Sting was on the tour. Then he's like, yeah, fuck this. I'm not going. So, yeah, so it's just fucking gross. So do you have any clips of Jake talking about his dad?
Yes, I have one. Should I just say what he said? Because, like...
yeah.
Basically, he just tells the story that I told about the mom. And then he talks about how it started basically when he was like 11 or 12. He had been living with his grandma. He had to move out and move back with his dad. And he's like, I thought it was going to be so cool, blah, blah, blah. And he says that it ended up being, like the worst thing that could have happened. It's because he showed up, and shortly after he moved in with his dad was when all of the abuse started. Yeah. Not from his dad, but from his dad's then wife.
Who was... Jake was, how old was he? Was he 11?
He was like 11, 12.
He was 11, and this girl was 20 years old, but here's the kicker. He'd been with her for like 6 years, so like do the math on that one. Yeah. So anyway, so she would abuse him, and this is a little kid. So she would abuse him, she would beat him, and then basically make him do stuff to her, and she had to walk. This is how she had to walk him through what to do and how to do it. And then afterwards she would beat him and say, like, if you say anything, I'm gonna tell your dad and he's gonna kill you.
So he said that it was right after he had like moved in, that she started wanting to play these games supposedly with him,
Yeah.
and that's what she called them. Like it was just games, blah blah blah. And eventually, I guess he got, like tired of it, because like he's a little kid, and
Yeah.
that he did go and tell his dad, and that she came in into the room in the middle of him telling his dad and was like, I'll deal with you later. Kicked him out of the room, talked to the dad, came out and ended up like beating him up basically. And the
Yeah.
dad just never mentioned it.
Yeah, didn't say anything.
Didn't care.
No, didn't care.
He
And it was
was
also
like the same thing.
yeah, and there was also rumors that she was helping him get young girls, like she, and this again, these are rumors because they're not. We don't have video of this happening, so we have to say allegedly.
Mhm.
So allegedly, she would go just like look at this. She would go to parents, like his parents, like, hey, I'm his manager, and da 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 da, and he really wants to meet your daughters because he has daughters that are also wrestlers, and if they want to be he has a daughter that's also a wrestler, and if he wants to be successful, she does, like, come meet him. And then they would do stuff, and then she was kind of like the hook.
Yeah.
You know.
If we hadn't mentioned it, the daughter is Rockin Robin,
Yeah.
and the other son is Sam Houston. Here they are.
Yeah. So, yeah, look
Yeah.
at them.
Jeez Louise. Poor kid.
Who's the coolest one out of all of them? Jake the Snake, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the other guy looks like he's doing like a commercial in like the 80s for like Texas Roadhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, just like, come on down and get yourself a Texas steak. And then she looks like your waitress. She's like, come on here.
Going roller skating.
Yeah, she's gonna go roller skating in Texas. They're all Texans. Yeah, he's the coolest one. So anyway, so he told stories about his classmates saying shit like, fuck, man, because he told some of his friends about what was happening, not in like a, hey, man, guess what? He kind of told them like in confidence because he didn't know if this was fucked up or not. And some of his friends were older. They were like older boys or like 13 or 14 years old. And he was telling them, and he's like, man, you're so fucking lucky. Your mom's so hot. And he was like, what? And what did he say in the clip? He said, like, it's not hot to me. That's supposed to be my mom. And she's doing these things to me,
Mm-hmm.
So he grew up with that kind of and then he became an alcoholic of all things. Like
he started drinking when he was like 12.
Yeah, when he was 12, he started drinking, and he was drinking. And the alcohol gene is in his family. His grandfather was a heavy alcoholic. So I mean, when you watch those, like his story with like DDP, and he's an alcoholic. When you look at his backstory, you're like, I give you a pass on why you're an alcoholic.
Yeah, I feel so bad for him. I've seen so many videos of his. I've watched all of like the stuff that he had with DDP for years, and I feel so bad every time that like I see him like come into like the car and he's like all messed up again, or like like DDP's like talking about how like this and this happened to him and they're gonna go pick him up, and like I feel bad every single time. I just didn't know about that part.
Yeah, because you're like, oh man, what a dirty drunk, and then you kind of get his backstory, and I was like, dude, I give you a pass. Because what did he say? He said in interviews that he was trying to escape it, so he said he would go to therapists because they're like, why don't you go to therapy? And he said he would go to therapists, and then the therapist would be like, why don't you tell me about, he's like, why are you telling me to remember this shit? Why don't you fucking teach me how to forget?
Yeah. See, but before we were going to do this like topic, I didn't know that man was his dad and that he was doing all that. I think I just felt bad for him because you could see that he was trying, to like get better, and he just couldn't. Had I known back then, like this is everything that he went through, like I think I would have felt so much worse. So thankfully I didn't know until now. Like, I felt so bad already.
And he's a delightful dude. Like everybody said that he's a nice guy. There's even a video out there, of him like making some kind of chicken salad. Yeah. Like that. Yeah, we watched it. So he hands him like the spoonful of chicken, and then he doesn't just like he goes.
It's so stupid. It's such a stupid.
Yeah, the fact that he gets the spoon, he's holding the spoon, he's like, oh. that's how he eats it.
Man.
But like you see him like, healthy and he's happy, you know. But
Mhm.
he talks about he always had these dark thoughts, and it was because of who his dad was. And he was talking about how even before, like, because he didn't know that everybody knew,
Yeah.
you know. So he would get into wrestling, and he's like, "Hey, you're Grizzly's kid, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." And the guy would elbow him across the mouth,
Mhm.
you know. And he's like, "What the fuck," you know. And then they would just beat the shit out of him, and then he came to find out that everybody knew, and because they couldn't beat up Grizzly Smith because he was the guy that owned the place, you know. If you assaulted him, he wasn't going to get you jobs anymore, and you weren't working. So instead, they're like, "Well, we can't get to Grizzly, but we can sure as hell beat the shit out of his son." So
Yeah.
they would fuck him up. They would beat his ass, you
Yeah.
know.
It's he actually he said also that his own dad, Grizzly Smith, would get him fired. He got him fired like from multiple places. Um I guess I don't know if he would like just not book him. I don't know if if he was doing the booking when
Yeah,
Jake Roberts was doing that,
yeah.
but that he just didn't want him to wrestle. And so that kind of gave him like the drive to be like, like I'm going to make it and I'm going to be better than you. And he said like, and I did, I was better
At
than
So at first he said that when the wrestlers would beat the shit out of him, you know, because of what he was, you know, and the dad was like, "Fuck, you're embarrassing me."
him.
You
Yep.
know, he's like, "People know that you're my kid," and then and then he's like, "You're acting like a coward, you're doing this," and then he's like, "Okay, this is what I'm gonna do." You know,
Hmm.
so he knew that to get to his dad, it was embarrassing his dad by imagine that he would tell people, he's like, "Yeah, my dad over there, that's Grizzly Smith," and people that didn't know, and they're like, "Wait, you're Grizzly Smith's kid?" And he was, "Yeah." So he just beat his ass, and he
Hmm.
would be bloody, and then his dad was just so embarrassed. Finally, his dad's like, "I'm no longer gonna
Yeah.
book you."
His
So
his dad said, I think the words that he used that his dad said to him were that he's ashamed. Like he like
yeah,
embarrassed him. He's like, I'm ashamed.
you're gut,
You're gutless and you'll
yeah,
never amount to anything.
yeah.
Like,
So
can
so
you
then he
imagine?
so then he but yeah, I can definitely imagine.
Okay, let's stop.
So so anyway, so the fact that he heard those words, he was like, "Yeah, you know."
Hmm.
And he said it like this in an interview. He went, "Bada bing," you know, like that's what he wanted.
Yeah.
So then, but then eventually his dad was like, "You're not doing this anymore." So yeah, got him fired, wouldn't book him. So then he
Hmm.
went to a different territory and then changed his name, you know, because he used to be like Jake Smith and, or what the, how do you, this is the reason why also why he changed his name to Jake was because his name was Aurelio,
Aurelian.
Aurelian Smith.
Yeah.
And he's like, no
Like
one knew how,
Aurelian, but with an L. Aurelian.
yeah, Aurelian Smith. And he's
Hmm.
like, no one knew how to spell it. No one knew how to say it. No one knew what the fuck it was. So
Yeah.
he was Jake, and he was Jake Smith. And
Hmm.
then eventually he changed his name because he's like, I'm gonna make it on my own. Fuck you, I don't need you for any, because his dad's like, without me, because that's how he had his siblings. He's like, without me, you're nothing. So then they kind of like, okay, I guess. And he's like, you know what? I'm Jake the Snake Roberts, and he had a whole new gimmick, and then he wrestled and made it big. He actually was the top bad guy,
Hmm.
So with Grizzly, just the fact that this was just a 6'9" monster, you know, the fact that he was just able to do all these things and he was still so revered,
Yep.
by a lot of people. Even nowadays, when Jake the Snake talks about him, people are like, I don't think you should disrespect Grizzly like that. He did a lot for the business, and he's like, fuck him,
Yeah.
you know.
And it's not like he was the greatest like wrestler or anything. Dutch Mantel in that same interview was like he was not, his wrestling was not great ever. He just had, like being huge, like that was his
Yeah,
whole thing. Was
and
that gigantic.
he
And
was
that was
just
it.
big. Yeah,
Mhm.
he was big, and but he never wanted to wrestle other. That's another thing, is that just demonstrates like the cowardice of it,
Mhm.
because he was very selective of his opponents. Like when they had a guy, like Big John Studd was a guy that was 6'7", and they're like, Big John Studd's in town. I think that'd be a great spectacle if you guys wrestle. And he's like, no, I don't want that. And he's like, well, why? He's like, you guys are almost the same size. He's like, I don't want that. He wants to wrestle with people that are way smaller than him because he wants to
Mhm.
feel. And that just really plays into the psychology of the way that he was.
Yeah.
Because he wanted that power over people. So he chose children,
Yep.
and he would, abuse women, and children. That was his thing. But then when it came to, like, for example, Sting, when it came to somebody like that, he didn't want, as the kids say, he didn't want the smoke. So he kind of like stayed away from that. He didn't even imagine that. He didn't even want to wrestle someone close to his size because he was afraid that he was gonna look weak.
Yeah.
And it's like, but you're big, like you're still bigger. No, but he's big, and like he's still big enough that he can give me a challenge, and I don't want people to think that's just one of those.
They said he was really slow.
Yeah, he was.
Like he talked slow, he walked slow. Like everything that he did was just really, really slow. I guess because he was just so big.
He was just so big.
And so like you can't wrestle like that.
Well, but that's the thing, is that it was just him, because some wrestlers that were that big or bigger, like Andre the Giant, he was pretty fast, and when he first started, he was pretty agile. He could do a backflip off the top turnbuckle when he first started, and he was 7'2". So it's
like big. That's crazy.
Yeah, he was big. 7'2", and at that point, I think he was like 400 and something pounds.
That's almost 2 feet taller than me. That's
crazy. That's almost like 17 times bigger than me.
17.
Here we have a guy that's 7'10", 400 and 113 pounds. Anyway. But he was slow in everything he did. Like he was just like slow, and the way he would talk, he's like, I'm gonna beat you in the ring, so you better be ready. You better be ready, because I'm gonna get you. He's just so slow,
They had this weird challenge where he was like, oh, like you'll win $11,000 if you can pick me up.
Yeah.
And like a bunch of wrestlers tried, and like I don't know if that was like part of the show. That was like the chant.
It was part of the show. So,
but like he was really big.
Yeah, he was very big. But wrestlers of that era, I think there was plenty of them that could pick him up. They were just part of the show. And then they had Big John Studd, going back to him, he had a slam me challenge, like try to slam me challenge, and Andre the Giant ended up slamming him, and getting the money. So Grizzly Smith was like, I'm going to do the same thing. But I get to pick my opponents, because there was people that wrestlers are like, fuck, I need the money. And they would show up. Like you had Hercules Hernandez, who was he wasn't gigantic. He was like 6'1", but he was just fucking humongous. You had Tony Atlas, he's like, I'll take that challenge. And then it's like, no.
Big too.
He was big too, and he's like, no. So he would pick smaller wrestlers and women to try to slam him, So just like things like that. So a very, very small mind. Teddy Atlas said that when you're a guy that doesn't have what it takes to become a good fighter, and you don't have what it takes to get in there and get down and dirty, you develop a really good ability to sense who is, and you avoid him, and that's what he was. He wasn't a great wrestler. He was afraid of confrontation. So what was he? He was a guy that was able to find, and he could tell who was that guy, and he would avoid them. And fortunately for everybody, it was a majority of the roster, that he avoided, except for the people that he had to pay, and all these people that depended on him. So he was a guy that was he was unchecked, unchecked monster. And a lot of people didn't speak out until he died. Like it shows you something. After he died, people are like, yeah, I wrestled with him, and yeah, he molested kids. It's like, why don't you say anything?
Yeah, the daughter said. A lot of people actually made this excuse, which she didn't make an excuse, obviously, but she was saying that, a lot of people made the excuse that, it just wasn't talked about back then. Like, they just didn't talk about these types of things. Like, who cares?
Yeah, who gives
a fuck? He was literally doing it. Say something.
Yeah, well, this goes...
Like Jim Ross, he said, like, it was very obvious. Okay, why didn't you say anything?
Why didn't you say anything? Like, that was the thing. It's like, it was very obvious. Like, he showed... See, I shouldn't make that mouth, because he actually has a cerebral palsy, so I shouldn't do the thing, but I almost did it. But he said...
You know what? He was a protector of a pedophile.
Yeah, so he was like...
Make fun of him.
He was like, it was very obvious that that you know what was going on. He had one girl in each hand, and maybe they weren't holding hands, but they were on the side. And let me tell you one thing. What?
Nothing.
Well, let me tell you one thing. Back in Oklahoma, whenever you see a pedophile, this is now me adding to it. Back in Oklahoma, when you see a pedophile with one girl on each side, you don't say shit as long as he pays you. So yeah, but that's what he said. It was very obvious because he would walk in with girls, one on each side. They would sit with them, and they'd say that people that were there were so fucked. And like, I hate listening to interviews because I hate the details that they would give, and somebody would try to report it, that they'd say they would watch this guy, and he was like stroking a little girl's leg. She was 11, and she's sitting with her parents.
No.
And he's stroking her leg, and then he said that he mentioned it to somebody, like, isn't this weird? Like, what's going on? And then he says that they sent him a letter saying, like, by the way, we no longer need you in this territory anymore. And he's like, what the fuck, And then he remembers, he's like, I said something.
Well, that's what Jim Ross said. Is like, he was like, oh, well, the boys weren't going to say anything because he was doing the booking and he was doing the pay. And it's like, how do you just ignore that for a paycheck?
Well, this is like if it wasn't for Jake the Snake, like saying, like, they would have swept this under the rug, just like they did with Pat Patterson. With Pat Patterson, to this, he got a fucking like an award. Like, he's a guy that's redeemed. He's revered, and he's a guy that everybody's like, man, he's such a good guy. Like, he literally molested a lot of little boys, and no one said anything. Somebody even saw him doing things in a car with a kid,
and tried to like get all these wrestlers to like do things with him.
Yeah.
Adults.
Yeah, like today. Didn't I send you something about like this wrestler?
So yeah, it's so crazy. What do you think about that? You think that that's what he was saying, like what the guy thought?
Oh, fuck yeah! That's what he was saying. That's what he
table.
Well, yeah, he kicked over the table. Even because that was the fear. You ever seen Police Academy?
Remind me.
Police Academy was this movie, like a comedy movie about like this police force or like a bunch of misfits, and they're all ridiculous, like very slapstick type humor.
Maybe.
Like they had a guy, this black guy. That's what he was. So I'm gonna say it, this black guy who would make sounds.
Uh-huh.
And there's a great scene where he's shaving and he's like. He just made sound effects. That was his thing for some reason. He was just like,
pretty good.
Thank you.
Police Academy. I think I've seen it, but it has been too long to even know anything that happened.
So to show you, this was like 80s. To show you like where the mindset was back then, there's a scene where these bad guys like run, they're being chased, and they run into this club called this bar called like the Blue Jay or something, if I remember correctly. I was like 9 when I watched it, and it was like it was a gay bar. So the guys run in there, and then they're like, ah! You can just hear them screaming, and then the cops are like, where'd he go? He went in there, and they run in there. And then the cops start screaming like, ah! Like it's a gay bar.
Yeah.
So that was the mindset back then. I remember my cousin laughing, and I didn't get it. I'm like, ¿Qué pasó? And he's like, es un club de maricones, and I was like, ah. Okay. All right, we're gonna end this stream.
What?
I said we're gonna end this stream.
What happened?
You said haircut. You had that wrestler, Psycho Sid. Remember that dude was big. He was 6'7", muscular as shit. And he said that when Pat Patterson like made moves on him, he's like, I panicked. I was like, hey, that was the mindset. Here's a homosexual. Yeah. So with
which Pat, I mean, like even now, anybody that's not gay is gonna react like that. Like that's
what I do when a guy's like, "Hey, good morning, man." I was like, "Yeah." And I run across the street and almost get hit by a car.
It's true. I've heard it.
And I run past them. Anyway,
but today
that happened today. Yeah. So, he kicked over the table and he's like, I'm not like that. He's like, no. I'm talking about you can go both ways, like heel or face, which is bullshit because there was wrestlers like Virgil. He was, you got to look him up. Virgil was, the hell's his name? Ted DiBiase, his manservant. So I guess to get the job, he hit on him, and he's like, well, let me see the meat or something like that. And
Oh
then he
my
was like,
God.
all right. So he just pulled it out. He's like, you're hired.
Jeez.
And that's how he got the job. Anyway, so
Must have been impressive.
yeah, or I guess
I don't know.
that's why I hired him. Anyway, so going back to go back to the whole Pat Patterson thing. That's another person that no one wanted to talk about it. People were like, well, and there was wrestlers that they openly spoke about it, and they even had him on a fucking show, on a daytime show, and people were defending him. People defend him now.
Mhm.
That's just a myth, and it's like, so all these kids made it up. Yes,
Yeah.
like okay, so same thing.
That's what's crazy is that like with Grizzly Smith, there were people that were coming forward and saying, like he did this, but if you Google him, you Google like his names or like victims or whatever, it only talks about the kids.
Yeah,
like everything else was kind of just like swept away. Like
yep,
nobody
yeah. So same thing with Jerry the King. You think that he stopped at one kid? There was one kid, and there was an attempted at another kid.
I don't think any of these people ever stop at one kid.
14, 13 were the ages. That's so creepy. So
no, what do you think that is? I think we've talked about this before, like the 13 thing. A lot of creepers.
I think it's because they
justify like they're teenagers because they're 13.
Because I think it's because they're still technically kids, but
Mhm.
I don't even know what to say, because you can't even say like they're becoming, like they're
No.
still kids.
Yeah, but they're technically teenagers. I think that's their whole thing. Is like, like they're teenagers, but they're right there.
Yeah.
Like they were a kid yesterday, and they're like, well, but they're a teenager now. Like,
yeah, because 2 years before that they were 11.
Yeah.
So, but that's like the whole Sergio Andrade thing, when they're like, y las niñas are like, hey, que niñas, adolescentes, which translates to the girls, and he says, hey, they're not girls, they're teenagers, which is like,
didn't she say something? They were like, girls that gave birth.
Yep.
Like it makes it any better.
Yep. So
like gave birth because they were assaulted.
Yeah, so fucking gross. So anyway, so back to the whole Grizzly Smith thing. Just so many people just protecting just scumbags. And what's sad is that I love the wrestling industry. Like right now, my favorite wrestler is Cody Rhodes. I wish I could pull that look off. I should just wear that, that kind of clothes. Anyway, so just get no. It has to be authentic. So just bleach my hair. So yeah, I'd rather do the wig, because the whole process of growing, like, it's gross, be itchy, and it's just like you go like this, and then you feel a little fuzz. It's so nasty. Anyway,
I thought y'all liked that.
The what?
I thought y'all liked that.
I don't. I mean, on girls, yeah, but like the feeling hair on them, like, yeah, but not in my head. Anyway, so back to Cody Rhodes. So, you know what his signature move is called?
What?
Crossroads. Isn't that cool? Anyway, so back to wrestling. So, so with wrestling, that's a business that I really like, because it's basically, like somebody once said, I always say this whenever we talk about wrestling, it's just a sideshow, a bunch of carnies that are on TV, and they're doing a performance for you, a bunch of carnies. And they are a bunch of carnies. They act like carnies, they have criminal background like carnies.
That's what they said about Grizzly Smith, that it looked like they just found some like mountain man, and they like, stumbled into a ring. Him and that other guy, I don't know what the other dude's name is, but they were called like the Kentuckians or something.
Damn, who was that? And I got to look that up. That's not Giant Haystacks.
I have a picture. It's that guy.
I think that's Giant Haystacks, but I could be completely wrong.
Let me see.
Let's look that guy up. What does he have in his waistband?
I don't know. Big Boy Brown? Luke Big Boy Brown?
Oh, that's oh,
Yeah,
jeez.
Luke Brown and that dude.
I've never seen him young. Like I've
It's
seen
crazy.
him later. I've seen him when he was old. Anyway, so yeah, it's so crazy. Bunch of carnies with carny crimes, and it just sucks because wrestling is supposed to be pure. It's supposed to be like American entertainment. It's supposed to be
It's supposed to be pure.
yeah. It's
They're
supposed to be.
throwing each other around in a ring,
Well, look at it like this. There's a good guy.
smashing chairs on each other.
Well, there's a good guy and there's a bad guy, right? It's very cut and dry. The one guy who's a good guy, he's like, I'm here for all the kids in here and all the people. Not like that. He's not the
No.
villain. He's not. But he's like, I'm here for all the kids, anybody that has a dream. I'm here to wrestle for all of you. Don't give up. You had Hulk Hogan who was like, let me tell you something, brother. You know, say your prayers, take your vitamins, do good in school, you know, and do all these things because that's how we do it, brother. That's what's going on, you know. And it was just that. It was just there was a good guy and there was a bad guy.
You know what we didn't talk about?
What?
Jolene.
Oh shit. Should we?
Well, just real quick, I guess. I mean, there's not much to say about her.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
So Jolene Smith was another one of Grizzly Smith's kids.
Yeah.
And I have a picture of her with him actually when they were young. But her basically, I think she was also abused by this guy, and she ended up like moving out. I guess she like escaped it all or whatever. She went to go pick up her sister, and the sister was like, I hadn't seen her for a couple years, and you could tell that she wanted to kind of like talk to her about that. The mom did end up talking to the little girl and was like, hey, like, tell me, is something going on, whatever, right? So 2 weeks after the sister picks her up, she disappears.
Yeah.
And they never find her.
They never found her.
And
so
the person that did it was her husband's ex-wife.
Yeah. So the story, one of the stories behind that, and one of them came from Jake, who talked about how, and it's so fucking sick. Like the more that you, so apparently this woman started to feel jealousy because he was favoring, you know, being sexual with his own daughter than with his girlfriend or wife. So the jealousy got to her, and she hired somebody to go ahead and take her. You know.
Yeah. So I found the her name was Faye Lynn. Weird name, but Faye Lynn and Rogers.
Well, these were hillbillies. You got to remember that.
Yeah. So they lived in a trailer park. Her, the husband, and
I don't believe you.
Their 2 kids, the girl Jolene, and across like from them was another trailer. And this guy said that like at 5:30 in the morning, he heard a really like high pitched scream. He looked outside. The husband had already left for work, and that he saw some like car outside of the thing. The like lights were off, but that he saw like a body laying on the ground. He saw somebody standing over it, and that it looked like a guy.
Yeah.
Then he sees them, I think, like put the body like in the car or something, and like it took off. That same morning, somebody that Phelan person worked with saw like scratches on her neck, and they kind of, I think, were like trying to say like, oh, it's because we were arguing because he was lying and like blah blah blah, whatever. They ended up obviously finding out that it was her, but she kidnapped her and held her like somewhere, ended up murdering her most likely, and then never, I guess she just never told them where she was.
Yeah. So that's another thing, is that I don't know if it was Grizzly that put this in Jake the Snake Roberts' head, but he said that this happened because you did not protect your sister, and this is your fault. You know, so imagine, again, going back to being a kid and then having this in your head. Not only, you know, is your dad doing horrible shit, his wife's doing horrible shit to you, doing horrible shit to your siblings. One of your siblings is dead, and it's all your fault.
Yep.
You know, so you know, and he talks about.
No wonder he started drinking at 12. That's crazy.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what it is. So when you look at him and he tells the story, he knows now that it wasn't his fault, but those thoughts are still in his head.
Yeah.
You know, he says to this day, you know, he still struggles, and he says, because I failed to protect, and he said it in, I think it was on the Joe Rogan show where he said that, and he didn't mean to say it. He was just talking. He just kept going. You know, he's like, it's all these things in life. He says, like, when you don't do this, he says, oh, when I failed to protect my sister, and it's going on. And then I was like, how come no one is stopping this and saying, like, hey, you're a kid, and that's not your fault. He was
12. She was like 20.
Yeah, so they just
not his. You know,
so they just let it keep going. You know, no one stopped them. You know, and I wonder how come maybe they just let him talk. You know, but because he talked about in other interviews before the Joe Rogan one that, you know, he's come to accept that it wasn't his fault and that all these kind of things. But then when you get him talking, like, you could tell it's still in his head. You know, and then that's what
he says, that he's more comfortable with his Jake name. Yeah. He's like, I'm Jake, you know, like more comfortable as Jake. He said that he put Aurelian away 30 to 40 years ago.
So
hasn't brought him out. He's like, I just can't.
That's so fucking dark. It's such a dark thought. Anyway, so Grizzly Smith is dead now. All these people are now speaking out because now he's dead. You know, because like, he can't affect my paycheck. He can't sue me. So now they're coming out and telling these fucking horrible stories.
That's good. He's dead though.
Yeah. So now
we suffered also before.
Yeah. Oh no, the devil's fucking your dad in hell.
Oh no. You almost lost your leg by staph infection. Oh.
Yeah, what a fucking douchebag.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm glad he's dead. Well, it's that line from Pulp Fiction. Yes, he deserved to die, and I hope he burns in hell. You know?
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, that's it. So guys, check out TeePublic. Check out the merch. Check out, you know, get yourself a shirt. Should I make a wrestling shirt?
Should make a Decon the Dirty Dream shirt.
Decon the Dirty Dream? That's my persona.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's it, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Like and subscribe, share the show, buy yourself a mug. The mugs look really good. You know, I'm still very shocked. I'm like, damn, I did this shitty thing and it looks good.
I don't have it here, but
oh, nice going. You dropped the ball.
Thanks for nothing.
Thanks for nothing. You know, anyway, that's it, guys. So remember to always look both ways, especially if you find yourselves on Radio Road.
Jeez.